Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you today with a shockingly awesome figure review. Today we're going over the Marvel Legends retro card Spider-Man 2099. And I'm so glad that they decided to re-release it. I hunted everywhere for the original Marvel Legend one, and everywhere that I looked, there's just no way I'm gonna pay for that secondary market price. I mean, it's up in the hundreds to 200s, and I'm just thinking, no. Just no. I did that with Rogue, and that was it. And then they, of course, shortly thereafter, re-released her. So when I saw this, I was like, yeah, I'll just wait for this. Even though I like the Marvel Legends box, I'm not too big on the carded piece. And even though, like I said, I don't like the carded one, I do like that this has that retro look from the 90s, kind of like the Toy Biz X-Men ones when they did re-release those. It has that same nostalgic feel. I like that they have Spider-Man 2099 there. Of course, Spider-Man there across the top and Marvel Comics there. And they kind of have that New York, Manhattan look there. Nothing on the side. Come around to the back and you get that cool little figure setup. Well, actually, that's not a product shot. That is a cool artist rendition of the figure. There's a read-up. I'll get a close-up so you can read that at your convenience. Come around here to the side. Nothing again. Nothing on the top. Nothing really on the bottom. So with that said, let's get Miguel O'Hara, the future Spider-Man, out of the packaging and get a closer look at him. Now, before we dive into the backstory of Miguel here, the 2099 universe is supposed to take place roughly 107 years from the main continuity. And I will say this, if you didn't grow up in the 90s, the 80s and 90s were definitely a time to be a comic book collector and fan. It was all over the place. Pizza Hut, God, just about any retail store or restaurant, they always had something cool. And then, of course, the video games, it was just a time to be alive. And the 2099 line was definitely one of those because it was something new and fresh from Marvel. And I remember these books getting eaten up something quick and the buzz around them. And here's the thing is there was really no internet yet. So the buzz was you went to your local comic shop and you talked about it, or you read it in Wizard magazine, which if you've never read one of those, those things were so awesome. Okay, nostalgia aside, this Spider-Man's first cameo appearance was Amazing Spider-Man 365 from August 1992. And it's like a 5-page little blip in the book, which essentially what it is the first few pages of his first full appearance, which is Spider-Man 2099 #1 from September of 92. And here's something that I saw that I thought was really cool is Spider-Man #1, this 2099 #1, is still one of the highest selling issues of Peter David, which, you know, his X-Factor run was superb, his Incredible Hulk run was awesome. But I think the reason this one took off like gangbusters back in the day is because it was something new. It was a new take on Spider-Man. The same with X-Men, and then of course Punisher and all the other characters came along. But these were the first two. And as I just said, I remember people talking about it and just absolutely loving it. Now, Miguel was the head of the genetics programs of Alchemex. He was intending to create new corporate-controlled superpowered soldiers called Corporate Raiders. He wanted to resign and discontinue the research after one of his test subjects dies, but you find out that Alchemex is not what it seems, and he's blackmailed into staying by being slipped an addictive drug called Rapture. So Miguel, and terrified, he tries to purge the drug using his genetic code to overwrite his current biology and free himself. However, the machine's sabotaged, causing his genetic code to become 50% spider DNA, and of course he has spider abilities. And all this, the reason that he has spider stuff in his lab is because he's inspired by the heroic age of Peter Parker. And that's how we get our futuristic Spider-Man. Now, with that said, if you haven't read those books, highly, highly recommend. Now let's jump into the accessories. Now, one thing that was always cool about the Miguel Spider-Man for me was, of course, his suit looked awesome. And then he always had this webbed cape. I wish that Hasbro would have made it a little bit bigger, because when you look at it, it always looks like it's, in the books, it always looks like some sort of torn up, draped poncho. This, however, is just a piece of plastic. And when you put it on him, because he has a peg here in the back, it just looks like he has like spider wings or like a wasp or something. And I wish that, you know, I know that if you want something that's more detailed, you go with Mafex or Hot Toys, etc., so forth. I just wish that they would have maybe took a little more initiative on the cape. I mean, I'm glad that it's clear, but I just don't like how just kind of meh. I don't know. I wish it would have flared out more. And again, it'd be kind of cool if there was like wired or cloth and you can drape it over the character. That would have been cool. But I'll let it pass because at least you can see it from the front. So it's a welcome addition in that regard. Now, from what I understand, other than the clawed hands that are on him, the original release of this Spider-Man back in the day did not have extra hands. So I'm thankful that with the re-release, we get 2 more sets of hands, which, you know, a lot of Spider-Man figures, like I wish that they would start releasing webs with them. It's so damn hard to find like swinging webs for photography or whatever, so you have to start making your own, which I don't mind, but at the same time, it's like, guys, the only Spider-Man that I own that has webs was the Gamers Verse Spider-Man. And I hate having to share it between all the other Spider-Man figures in my set. So anyway, I'm glad that we have the punching fist, and you know, the colors match, that red and blue. And from what I'm seeing is this one's more of a matte color. I was watching a old school review of Shartimus Prime's original 2099, and that one had more of a metallic blue, which would have been cool for this release. But still, this looks like the comic version, and I like the arrows on the hands, and they all match. And I'm very thankful that at least we didn't get webs, but we got wall crawling hands, and those are always seem to be rare, and I'm just very glad to have those in my collection. So those are the accessories he comes with. Now, as for the paint apps himself, the head sculpt is gorgeous, and even though it's not like super shiny like the original one from what I saw, at least it shimmers. And just the design too. I think that's what really turned people on back in the 90s too, is there's just this very edgy look about him. Everything always had pockets and everything had like these sharp edges, and it still holds up in my opinion. Especially, I'm thinking it's supposed to be, you know, the emblem on his chest. To me, it looks like part spider, part like Punisher skull. And that's how it's always appeared to me. And I like how it just runs down his chest. Very welcome addition in that regard. The red and the blues just look great, and I like how he has the Batman gauntlet spikies. I always thought that was kind of a cool addition, because I saw him and I went, wow, this is a very evil-looking Spider-Man, you know, because he always had the clawed fingers like that, and the only time I'd ever seen clawed figures were on villains like Carnage and Venom. So I was just like, wow, this is a really wicked-looking dude. And of course, I'm glad that the shimmer comes all the way around the back, and that they make sure to pay attention to the musculature, so that at least it looks like they're not shirking on the paint. You know, you get all the anatomy correct, you know, biceps, abs, triceps, I don't know all the muscle anatomy, but enough from what I can say. Same thing on the legs, got the blue. I kind of wish, you know, I don't remember if the comic if there was like red on his feet, but sometimes I wish there's just like a little bit of color to just offset the legs, because I mean, once you get to the torso, it's just all blue. And there's a particular figure that will be going over in the near future that really pisses me off on, but it's not this one. So overall, the paint apps, the accessories, for what we get with this figure, you know, and at the price point, I can't complain too much. I'm thankful for what we get with this Spider-Man, and it overall looks absolutely gorgeous. Just like with the other Spider-Man figures that I own, I'm thankful that he is bendy. But here's the thing, make sure to warm this figure up. There's a lot of stiff joints on him when you initially get him out. And you know, that happens from the paint that they put on there, and it just kind of dries in certain spots. I was watching a poll on Facebook, and people were talking about how they don't warm up their figures, which I can understand. You're afraid of harming them, especially if you're not too 100% sure what you're doing. Before I even started doing it, I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, watched a lot of like people like Shartimus Prime and whatnot, how they did it. And so, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, have a buddy help you, or just be careful. But when you really do figure it out, like see how this arm was super stiff, but now I can finally get it into the full double joint. So that's the importance, because you don't want to try to force that when it's hasn't been tampered with. It's going to snap and you're going to have a bad time. So with that said, the head, I think it's on a double joint there. As you can see, you can look down pretty far. Same there. I mean, look at that. That's the type of range that we want on a figure. You can look that way, and of course he has the techno head. Anyway, arms can go out that much, and he is on a butterfly joint, so you can at least get a nice range that way. Arm, you know, go up this way, go that way. As I just showed you a moment ago, double jointed elbows, hands, 360, and they do go up and down. The waist, the torso can go down about, or forward, down, whatever. I'm trying to say the contra code, I guess, but you can go down about that much. Back, a little bit get better. The only frustrating thing is after I warmed him up, I was able to bend him back more, but if you do, you kind of get that gap, so be mindful of that. He does twist at the waist. Now here's the only part of the figure that I started to get really agitated with, because, you know, most figures you can kind of almost do the double splits, especially the McFarlane toys. But here, he stops about that much. So if you want to do any like high kicks or real Spider-Man-y moves, you're going to have to be creative on how you do that. Legs can kick up relatively well, but downfall here, the butt flap. Hasbro. See, if you pull him back, see how his leg twists out, kind of like that. Hasbro. Take note of McFarlane. Yes, they have the butt flap, but it's soft plastic, so when you pull it back, the leg goes straight because the butt flap just kind of flaps up. I know it sounds awful the way I say that, but at least that way it's not getting that off to the side frustration there. So, you know, keep that in mind. Let's see. He does have the upper thigh cut. Woo woo. Double jointed knees. Wee. And then the ankles are definitely from, like when you see it in the packaging, like if you go back to the beginning of this review, you'll see how this leg was just kind of like merp. So took that, put it under a heater for a little bit, and finally was able to straighten these suckers out. And when you try to, still kind of stiff, I'm going to warm up a little bit more, but before, when I took them out of the packaging, I couldn't even do that right out. So you shouldn't have to do that, but because of mass-produced figures, you have to take the initiative, just like you do with everything else in life. So there's your life lesson for the day. After the ankle go up, ankle go down, and they both have very nice ankle pivots. So other than, you know, the hip area getting to be a little frustrating, the articulation, very bendy dude. So I'm sure that we're going to get some really awesome poses, and at least we have that nice range of motion as well. I am happy to have this figure. I missed the, what was the Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure Wave one, or whichever goblin that was. So when they said that they were re-releasing this one, I was thankful, because there was no way I was going to pay that secondhand marker price for the original. This one, I think the only difference is really the paint from what I've seen. I may be wrong. Feel free to make fun of me down in the comments. My only gripe with this Spider-Man, and I don't know if it's the same with the original, is the extra huge clown feet that look like platypus feet. That's probably my only gripe. Other than that, and I wish that the spider cape here, that you can't really see, but that one, I wish it was bigger. The way that it always flowed in the comics, that left much to be desired. But other than that, absolutely gorgeous piece, and I'm glad to have Miguel O'Hara in my Spider-Man collection. So if y'all have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if someone has traded this in. If not, then you can check out the other routes that we've already talked about. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little web bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Photo slideshow coming up next, and I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.